Miles is a product of his environment. He was raised around, like drugs and guns, and was raised around that lifestyle. Yet it's this really great artist, So that's who Miles is. Miles, he lacks a father figure, and McCall kind of becomes this father figure for him throughout the film. So this is a pivotal moment of McCall trying to just like shake Miles out of this lifestyle, and it's Miles finally kind of letting go of all this emotion. McCall is kind of like a savior within the community, so I think he's just doing the same in this situation with this boy. He's trying to save his life, and like throughout the film, we see exactly who Miles is and who his spirit is, who his soul is, who this artist is, and he's really great and really good. And so, I mean, if you were in that situation and if you saw potential in somebody and saw them going down the wrong path, then you would want to do the same, So essentially, that's what the relationship between McCall and Miles is. It's kind of like a coming of age, father-son type of vibe, Working with Denzel has been definitely a learning experience. I mean, Antoine and Denzel are both just great artists, and they're like respected like crafts, and Denzel being one of the actors that I've been looking up to, like for my entire like career, I would say, or just like in my entire like actor, in my entire life, you feel me? It's been crazy to learn from this man, and although I'll be in scene with him, it's almost like he's teaching me, and it could be a little intimidating, but I mean, I feel like between the three of us, Denzel, Antoine, and I, we all respect each other's work. Antoine and Denzel work really great together. This is their fourth film together. I think it's important to be on the same wave when making a film or collaborating with people. It's important that everybody is on one accord. It's going to be a lot of dope action shots. It's going to be a really heartfelt story. I don't think people are ready for Miles and McCall's relationship. So that's going to be really great to bring to the big screen.
I really was keen and interested in the sort of the father-son story. I mean, that's what was new about it. The sort of the story between me and the young boy, or McCall and the young boy, and helping him navigate a bit through life without a father figure. So, with where we are in the world and in this country, I found that new about this script. This is not something I've done before, so the excitement for me when I do something is in what's new. I've been in this business 40 years. I've never done anything a second time. He's helping other people. He's helping those that can't help themselves. I guess what's different about it in this film than from the first film, that in both cases, with Susan and with Miles, it's very personal. We're utilizing my boxing skills, I think, more in this film than we did in the first one. But then also, I have more of a sense of, having worked with Lynn on the first one and those stunt guys, and now working with Jeff on this one, I have more of a sense of what he does, what kind of fighting he does, and using the things in the environment, the things in the room. That starts months in advance, and it's a process. In the case of the scenes we're shooting now, we actually ended up coming in early yesterday morning and going back to what some of the things we were going to originally do. So based on the reality of the circumstances in the scene and you know, different things we're trying to accomplish and making it feel honest and real and, you know, and vicious. I think that's a part of who he is. I think that's the honorable thing to do. I don't think he's looking for trouble. You know, he's looking to help. So if those that are in his way, you know, he tries to give them an opportunity to do the right thing, sometimes in this film, not always. But doesn't always work out that way. They do have those skills. He doesn't know that that's what he's up against until he finds that out. But I think the difference is it's much more personal. It's not, you know, just a job for money. For them, it's a job for money. For him, it's very personal. Antoine Fuqua and I have had really good success together, and he really knows how to put these kind of film, you know, together, and you know, there's some really interesting set pieces, and I think maybe a more personal journey, you know, because this film is about what happens to people that he's allowed in his life, and he's a man who wasn't going to allow anyone in his life, and he opens up to a couple of people, and it's not good. It's not good.
What was it about Robert McCall? Probably Denzel Washington playing him. He's such a pleasure to work with. There's a depth of meaning to every little odd, strange things he does. McCall has a lot of sort of oddities about him, behaviors and things like that, and yeah, I would have to say that the invite into Equalizer 2 was delightful to get, because the first one had been so wonderful, and really the most wonderful things about it are the two men at the lead of it, in Antoine Fuqua and Denzel Washington. Working with them is working with consummate professionals in a game where you don't always find those kind of people anymore. And they're brilliant men, and they have an interesting, they make an interesting duo. They're very different, the way that they work, and that makes for interesting work. Susan Plummer is a woman who has a very, very high-powered job that she is very private and quiet about, but and I think has probably done all kinds of strange and dangerous things throughout her lifetime working for the agency. But she also has another side to her, which is a very feminine side. She's very happily married to the beautiful Brian Plummer, played by Bill Pullman. And she's a very typical wife in many ways, but she has this very high-powered job. So she's an interesting woman. She's a very, very interesting woman to play. Some time has passed since the first film, in reality and also in our movie world. And I think Susan advised him in one way in the first film, which was that he is good at helping people. He's good at equalizing wrongs. And so she suggests to McCall that he should go and help people, because he has the power to do that. And in this film, I think Susan is hoping that Robert McCall will now turn some of that loving attention to himself and find a way to equalize his own life. Driving is hard in Boston and complicated, but it's a beautiful old city, and that's why driving is hard in it. The buildings that we've been inside in this old town are amazing. Even just walking around, I don't know if it's where I happen to be situated, staying this time or something. I'm really noticing the amazing architecture in Boston and how it has been held intact in a way that so many places are all about the new building. And I feel like I'm in an old American city, one of the few old American cities that there are. I think that audiences don't know what to expect from this film, because what Antoine does is he never makes the same film twice.
The first Equalizer movie is I would say the ultimate badass actor playing the ultimate badass role. He's a highly trained, if not the highest trained killer, let's say, and he uses that training and that talent for good, and that's just really cool. My character's connection to Denzel's character, McCall, is we were essentially partners back in the day. I, like him, am a part of this sort of mysterious elite group of guys that are highly trained and skilled soldiers, trained by the government. To I guess, function within all of the government's most hidden elements. And he and I were in the same explosion that I survived and he presumably didn't. And so my character has sort of mourned his absence for the 7 years after this one incident that separated us, because I believed him to be dead, and so did the world. And he lived anonymously thereafter. So my connection to him is one of friendship, one of trust, partnership, mentorship. It would be, I would choose it as my character's deepest relationship. She's the boss, basically. And you could call it CIA, or you can call it some department that we don't even know exists, right? But we are the highest trained sort of soldiers in the country, and she is Mama Bear. We haven't seen McCall go up against people that are trained in equal measure to his skill set. So that does pose very, very new challenges. And I think that psychologically, emotionally, it's a lot more complex because we worked together. We're partners. We trained together. We were on assignments together. Not just me, but the other popes as well. So it's your family becoming your enemy. It does feel like jumping into a family, and I'm really grateful to have been invited into it and treated the way that I've been treated, because I feel like I'm a part of the family. Antoine Fuqua is as cool as his movies. He is a man on set that gets it done with a kind of ease and calm and a very incredible eye for detail. think as far as a character like Robert McCall is concerned, it's 100% wish fulfillment for people, that there be a hero out there, not wearing a mask and a cape, or not having superpowers, but a practical, skilled, moral human being who will do good whenever he gets the chance. What's different about this is that, you know, this is a sequel with all of its original players. Antoine Fuqua's first time directing a sequel, Denzel Washington's first time making a sequel. Bill Pullman is back, Melissa Leo is back, and then we've got new players that have to match the standard that has already been set. I think that if we do that, we learn more about a very mysterious character that entertained us very deeply in the first one, and it's a chance to see him exhibit more badassery, and the both of them, both Antoine and Denzel, and to get to know the character even better through these challenges and circumstances.
I think he's this iconic hero that speaks for those who can't and acts for those who are unable. And we're in a time in our culture where people feel voiceless and they don't get the help they need. And here's a guy that can come and help them. So I think that there was this kind of shining knight, you know, that lives in the shadows. Well, the world is very simple. He does fit in. He's an everyman, so he's at ease, and he appears like you and I to live in an apartment complex with a vast array of people. He's a Lyft driver, so he gets to hear human stories and involve himself with people. His scope is a little bit bigger, but he's a character and a man more at ease. Robert McCall is a man who pays attention, probably more, and he sees more than you and I see. So he can, for example, look at a young, talented child like Miles and see that he's teetering, that he's got one foot in one world and one foot in another. And he can sense. That's the other thing McCall does. He senses people who are in need. And here is a young man that the environment is sort of sucking in, and McCall, who doesn't have a father, becomes this father figure to him. He's now fighting himself. He's the popes, his adversaries in this movie are equal to him in skills and in thought process. So in those action sequences, it's heightened and bigger. It's more dangerous. The other equalizing sequences are very much in keeping with what Robert McCall does. He can assess a situation in milliseconds, decide distance and threats faster than anyone, and can use whatever he has available to him. One is that Susan Plummer, is the only person alive that knows all of Robert McCall's secrets. She is the only connection to his past that's left. She is the only friend, truly, he has that knows who he really is. So it's a very interesting dynamic that they have. They've been to war together. They protected one another. They know each other's secrets. They're part of each other's lives. Everyone else thinks Robert McCall is dead. Susan and Brian Plummer know the truth. And that's a comfort to Robert McCall. So when she is in trouble, I think it becomes very personal. His connection to Miles, for reasons that become clearer and clearer in the movie, is much more personal. There's he has a little more skin in this game, Robert McCall. He becomes a father figure to this kid. He allows this kid into his world, where in the first movie, he avenged Chloe. He was her shining knight, whether she didn't know it. In this movie, he connects more with this young man, and it's much more personal.
I think people do enjoy the idea, the myth of a guy like McCall that exists. I think he was always, for me and Richard, a dark angel, right? He was the angel that we all wish we had, that would come down and serve justice to people who deserve it, you know? I think that's important to do. I think that's important even more today, you know, in the environment we live in today. I think people are feeling more injustice today. They're feeling like outsiders and they have no control over their lives. And we all wish we had a McCall that could swoop in and put us on the right path, you know? In the beginning of Equalizer 2, we find McCall driving a Lyft. He's a Lyft driver. And the reason he's a Lyft driver is because he's trying to connect with people. And as a driver, a lot of times they're invisible. You know, most of us get in the back of cars and people say things and do things as if the driver doesn't exist, like he can't hear anything. And he can hear people, he can hear their problems, he's in a position to help them possibly. So that kind of job we see he's in. But what you find is he's trying to connect with society more. And he's opened up a little bit more. And he seems to have a little more personality in this one than the first one. Well, it starts off in Turkey on a train, and you feel the scope of the film. It certainly has an epic feel. And then it returns to Boston. But the events that are taking place leads us to Brussels. But even with that scope and even with that international feel, it still feels very intimate, like the first one, because we wanted to contain that intimacy, because it's really about the characters and about the relationship with the characters. Most of us, if there's a car crash or something shocks us, our body locks up, we panic. For guys like that, everything calms down. The heart slows down. The vision gets sharper. They become more aware of everything in the room. They start to assess the threat quickly. So Equalizer vision is really all about how men of violence will assess a moment in a room. What's Denzel's greatest strength and what does he bring? Everything. He brings everything. There's no greater strength like to Denzel. It really isn't. We talked earlier about whether or not I went to see Iceman Cometh on the play on Broadway. I'm always fascinated when I'm watching Denzel do his work. He just constantly ups himself. And I think Denzel just is always looking to be better. He's always looking to be better. You think someone like him would, relax a little bit. He's Denzel Washington. But he doesn't behave like that. And Denzel will be the first person to say to you, I'm not a movie star, I'm an actor. I think the audience will be surprised. There's some good plot twists that you won't see coming. I think the audience will be moved emotionally more than you would in an action movie. And I think they're going to have a lot of fun with the action. A lot of fun.
for all of us that were involved in the first production, you know, it was something that we were hoping to get to this place, right? This is, quite frankly, my first sequel, which is an amazing thing in this market and how hard it is to get movies made. What's even more satisfying is this is also Denzel Washington's first sequel. Here we have one of the greatest living actors of our time and generation, and he's never reprised a role twice. Now we have the opportunity to see where Robert McCall has gone from the first one and how he is even driven more now to use that superpower, right, his heroic gifts, to help even more people. And that's what's really exciting about the Sequelizer, as we're calling it here, is to see how he's evolved and where he's able to now go to in this new picture. He is the equalizer, right? He's accepted that mantle. He's embraced the position he's in. And there's so many more people that need to be helped, right? And so this is not just a retelling or a rehashing of an original story. This is taking that story and showing where it is evolved into. We had an opportunity here to, once again, now bring a plot point into the sequel that did two things: move the story forward and created a new villain, which is what you always need in these movies, but also help us define backstory. What happened? How did they get here? Who is he? And all those things. So it's rare that you find a plot point that can do both. As a producer, and especially someone who helps create story on a day-to-day basis, you're trying to always move a story forward. Here, though, we felt, and had been told by the audience, that they still wanted to know some things from the past, and we were excited to be able to fill in those blanks. And so I think we've done a really good job in the sequel of giving the audience backstory information that they wanted and a drive of plot story forward that keeps them on the edge of their seats. Now I really hope that they see in Robert McCall an evolved hero, someone who has accepted the responsibility to help people. And I really do. I know it's just a movie, but it's almost like a pay it forward kind of situation. I want more people to help more people. And I know it sounds simple, but it's getting harder in the world we live in to just help someone. And when you feel as if nobody's helping you, I want them to always believe that there's a Robert McCall for them somewhere. And so hope is important. We need a lot more hope in the world. I hope Robert McCall touches lives in a way that creates more Robert McCalls. But I also hope people don't feel hopeless, because there are people out there that truly do care. And this is just a story of one of them.
They were the most dangerous, accomplished group of killers ever. And so when Denzel is pitted against his four brothers, if you will, you can only imagine the fireworks that happen, because they all know what they're going to do. They all are 10 steps ahead of each of them. So it's truly a chess game. You were watching a chess game in the third act. And it's a chess game like you've never seen before. I think I'm the luckiest producer working in Hollywood. I've got to do so many Denzel Washington movies now. I got to be the producer on the ones he's directed and starred in, and then ones that he's just starred in. And I'm always shocked, including today, when he is doing a scene that he'll bring, that calls for no humor, or calls for no compassion, or calls for everything, or calls for only compassion, and then he brings other things to them, like in today's scene where he's getting ready to end someone's life, but the opening of the scene, he's charming, and the guy that he's going to kill thinks that Denzel's his best friend. He has no idea what's about to come. That was not written on the page. That was what Denzel brought to it. That was what Denzel came up with in that moment as he's stirring his tea. That was, I mean, it's every take is a surprise. So when you get in the cutting room, it's just he gives you the greatest gift. It's like winning the lottery when you get to work with Denzel. Robert McCall always asks people and gives people a chance to do the right thing. And if they do the right thing, they will be let off. But most of them choose not to do the right thing. Most of these bad people choose not to do the right thing. That's the road that they've decided to walk down. So he has to put an end to that. He has to put an end to those bad people. He does give them a chance. He does want them to do the right thing. He really does. He believes in people. I'm personally incredibly proud that we got Denzel in a franchise. No one's been able to do that with him. So I was thrilled. And then when he agreed to do number 2, it's one thing to say, oh, this could be my franchise. And it's another thing, A, to make the first one work, which it worked financially and critically really well, hence Equalizer 2. And then that we were able to deliver a script even better than Equalizer 1, with new characters, with new action, with more exciting overall moments, with way, way cooler Robert McCall vision, if you will, Equalizer vision. You know, that was hard to do, and we pulled it off. We had to up our game. Richard had to up his game as a writer. We had to up our game as producers. Antoine certainly had to up his game as the director. I mean, when you're doing a sequel, you better deliver for the audience something better than the first. Plot-wise, character-wise, action-wise, smarts-wise. So it wasn't, we knew we had to do it, we just had to be clever about it. And it took a while. I mean, we did the last one, what, 4 years ago? So it takes a while to get it right. We weren't going to rush into it. I remember Denzel calling me one day, and he said, really what this movie is about is it's about a father and a son. And he said, I have to learn to become a father as Robert McCall, and Ashton needs to accept me being there for him, and I have to treat him as my son, and I have to steer him. And he said, that's what the core of the movie's about, and we can't lose sight of that. He said, you know, Antoine can't lose sight of that. You guys can't, Richard can't. And I think Denzel was right. I think the kind of the grounding of the movie is watching this beautiful relationship between Denzel and Ashton. Denzel has to be a real person in this kind of crazy action movie, and Antoine has figured out how to bring this action and the movement of the camera and the scope to this movie, and then he's learned how to quiet it down for Denzel. So it's almost like an accordion. He knows when to bring it together, he knows when to pull it apart, and he knows when to make it loud and when to make it quiet. He and Denzel really trust each other. I mean, this is their 4th movie together now. When you find a movie star who's such a great actor and a director who is really specific, I mean, Antoine's action is so unique and so specific, and you can merge them with a great story, it's magic. As a producer, it's your dream. And they both really respect what they both are the best at, and they let each other do what they're best at. Denzel understands what, even if he doesn't quite get what the action is in the scene in the moment, he knows that Antoine does. It's a lot of trust. And same with Antoine to Denzel. He knows Denzel's gonna hit his mark and give him 3 different amazing takes that he'll have a choice in the cutting room on.